A few words about the religious sectarian cults, their believers, human beings in general, and the Pharisees and their associates.
The terms Pharisees, Sadducees, high priests, and scribes in relation to God's laws, as they are called in the Talmud Emmanuel, have today become a single term which no longer has any good in it. In their context, all terms form a compilation of conscious hypocrisy, of cunning and arrogance, as well as of power addiction and deceit. And this was not only the case in Emmanuel's time with the aforementioned, but it has also been carried over into the present day, although the terms used to describe the hypocritical, devious, arrogant, power-hungry, and deceitful have changed, depending on the religious and sectarian cults and the political and scientific world. Thus today, in all countries and in all religions, sects, sciences, and politics, there are human beings who deserve these designations. In the same way, human beings of the same kind can also be found in all social circles, emulating the same forms, the whole thing not being conditioned by race and nation. And everything is much more widespread today than it was in the time of Emmanuel because the mass of humanity was much smaller then. Hypocrites, devious, haughty, power-hungry, and deceitful people, etc., also appear in every profession or occupation, but most of them are also to be found today in places where religious and sect leaders, as well as politicians and those with power in the state, and certain unrighteous scientists, used to gather and meet in large numbers at all times. Very strange is when some messenger of the truth appeared, a wise man or a prophet who proclaimed the truth or had to proclaim it as a result of a mission, that he was then attacked, slandered, defiled, persecuted, and tried to assassinate. This is particularly true of the servants and representatives of religious, sectarian, and godly cults who pretended and also today pretend and presume to be representatives of the divine will, supposedly serving an almighty, indulgent, and loving, but otherwise jealous, angry, and punishing God. Something that corresponds to an unprecedented irrationality. For how can a God be almighty, forbearing, and loving, but at the same time jealous, angry, and punishing? But this nonsense has been so from time immemorial, from the simplest medicine man, who dominated the clans with his arts, to the Pharisees, Sadducees, high priests, God law scribes, and the scientists, politicians, and state powers, as well as religious bigwigs and sect leaders of all kinds. And all these, without exception, together with countless believers and followers from the people, felt and still feel threatened by the truth of reality. Which is why they have always acted and stirred up against all the wise men and prophets, and against all other human beings, who openly brought and still bring the truth and the reality of the creative natural laws and commandments to the human beings of the earth. Against this fact no denying, no embellishing, and no twisting helps, because it is incontrovertible, as world history has proven since time immemorial. Clearly and unambiguously the history of mankind bears witness to this truth, and that it has never been different, and is also not different today. And the fact is, that from time immemorial and up to the present day, in all cases where wise men and prophets have really appeared, it would not have been a single exception. Again and again it was mainly the servants, representatives and powerful people, as well as the fanatical believers of the religious and sectarian cults who were downright opponents, schemers, and slanderers with regard to the teaching of truth and the associated teaching of the creative natural laws and commandments. As believers in cults, it was also often the rulers and other state powers who appeared as open enemies against the wise and prophets and against the teaching of truth, because they did not want to respect the natural laws and commandments of creation, because they feared for their power. Consequently, they fought against the teaching of truth, teaching of the Spirit, teaching of life, and opposed it with their own will, which was usually enforced with drastic punishments of torture and death. When later the realization came that the teaching was correct, it was usually much too late, because many human beings had already been murdered who could not be brought back to life. And the guilty parties in this way of persecution and assassination in relation to the wise and prophets, and those who were devoted to them, were first and foremost the religious and sectarian cult leaders and their servants and representatives, who were never able to recognize the actual reality and its truth. In truth, the recognition was always with only a few human beings from the people, but not with the cult leaders, their servants and representatives, not with their assistants and priests and other cult powers, and also not with their faithful followers up to the rulers and other state leaders. The few among the people, however, never had a chance to assert themselves with their acquired knowledge, for the believers in the cults of God have always been outnumbered and oppressed, persecuted and murdered those who openly stood up against the cults and the delusional belief in a God, and taught the truth. Contrary to the few who inclined to the teaching of truth of the wise men and prophets, the medicine men, simple priests, high priests, and the Sadducees, Pharisees, as well as the scribes of the laws of God, and the scientists and rulers, etc., in bondage to these, held on to their religious sectarian heresies. Consequently, their followers and those who believed in them found it wise to go along with them according to their way, in order not to be punished by them and their proclaimed God when they opposed the heresies and the belief in them. The religious sectarian cult leaders and their servants, representatives and believers in relation to a God, have never voluntarily and joyfully received a true prophet. And strangely enough, since time immemorial, no human being has thought of the fact that nature and reality itself has always shown that it is he alone, but not God, who determines his fate. But this is not surprising, for many thousands of years of experience confirm that medicine men, Pharisees, simple priests, high priests, Sadducees, God-knowing scribes, rulers addicted to God's faith, and the people who believe in God have never been able to recognize the true reality and its truth. They were all fundamentally closed to the truth in their conceit, not infrequently also out of lazy comfort or cowardly fear or fear of divine punishment, and this is how it has remained to this day. Since time immemorial they have proved this time and again, and they are proving it today. For even today they fight against the effective truth with the meanest and most impure means that a human being is capable of using. It is not possible to argue about this in any way, because both the past and the present also prove this fact drastically and incontrovertibly in every way. And it is also true today, as it has been since ancient times, that those who fall within the scope of medicine men, simple priests, high priests, and Pharisees, religious sect commissioners and Sadducees, and scribes with regard to the laws of God, did not and do not act out of real human love, but out of professional envy, lust for power, and for other base reasons. Already at all times they were disturbed by the real truth. Consequently, they never taught the truth faithfully, because they did not know it themselves and still do not know it today. If it was and is foreign to them, that no God is enthroned above man and does not guide or command him, but that he, man, is the only Lord and master of himself, and determines every smallest iota of his existence. From time immemorial it has always been the case that they were not aware of many things, so they simply assumed that they had imagined things and made them into factors of faith. So it came about that in some things false beliefs were spread and these became faith. In order to recognize and understand reality and its truth, they were as weak and incapable since ancient times as they are also today. They could not stand for this in earlier times, and they are also not able to do so today, because they know that their reputation will be shaken. And every human being who knows or seriously researches the history of mankind and the world knows or becomes aware that it has never been otherwise. But as always, the great mass of Earth humans do not want to learn a lesson from this. Only a few isolated individuals turn to the truth, while the great masses are trapped in religiously ancient beliefs in God, and the whole of historical facts cannot be used for truth. This is also because the cause of religious sectarian belief in God, which is always the same, appears again and again in a new form which is even more enslaving. And the new forms in turn lead to comfort and delusion in human beings. This deludes him into believing that everything is different in his time than before. Basically, however, everything has remained the same despite the new forms, because the way it was in the past is also the way it is today. In fact, the present is not different from the past. Nothing has changed in terms of the delusions of God and the fanaticism associated with them, if we disregard the fact that everything has become even worse. May the human being of the earth, who is reasonable, go to serious people who have turned away from the belief in God, and turn to reality and its truth, who openly summon up the courage to confess it and to follow the natural laws and commandments of creation. For it is the human beings who are not afraid to be honest with themselves and to stand by the fact that they alone, but not a God, determine and lead their lives. They are the ones who know and admit that the religions and sects also still today enslave in the consciousness of every godly believer, and they rummage against anyone who puts in danger the religious sectarian dogmas on which the religious and sectarian cults are built. However, if the human being who knows the truth admits that he does not recognize the religious and sectarian beliefs of the cults, he will not hesitate to be treated as an evil enemy by those who believe in the cults, respectively by those who believe in God, and will not hesitate to accuse him of blasphemy. They are also not afraid to throw dirt on the person who knows the truth, to slander him ugly by every trick in the book, and even to seek to kill him. This is the way it is and not otherwise, in principle. However, this wrongdoing is often cultivated by the religious sectarian cult leaders, their servants and representatives only for the sake of influence and power, and for the sake of money and wealth, but not truly to follow an urge which is aimed at honoring an almighty God. The human being who does not recognize and does not understand the truth is not able to recognize from these facts, which are so easily recognizable, that everything religious and sectarian is nothing but a well-thought-out pack of lies. And that this is so is shown by the fact that the main sects which call themselves religions, and the sects which have split off from them, all of which are hostile to each other. Not to mention the fact that the main sects, respectively the main religions, are also not exactly friendly towards each other. Although in recent times there have been fake efforts to fraternize between different religions, which however only serve to carry one's own delusions into another religion. In this respect, the Christian churches in particular are doing their best to make friends with Islam, Buddhism, and Judaism. Of course, all this does not lead to any useful conclusions for the human beings, especially not for those who are looking for the effective truth of the natural laws of creation and their commandments. Therefore, the human being cannot think that the whole of the religious sectarian faith and the machinations of the cult leaders, their servants and representatives in the search for the truth, can help him, because through them the venerable creative natural laws and commandments cannot be found and cannot be recognized. But if the human being really seeks the effective truth, then he must recognize reality and make it understandable. And if he really does so, then he is abruptly and harshly awakened from his irresponsible faith, and from his roaring inertia of truth. But the cult leaders and their servants and representatives, who came out of medicine men, simple priests, high priests, Sadducees, God law representing scribes and Pharisees, etc., and the cult powers that have come out of them today, and their servants and representatives, are only a part of those who mislead the human beings of earth. In fact, there are other enemies of truth, such as the conscious-hearted, the chronic slanderers and liars, and the know-it-alls, all of whom are not among the cult leaders and cult powers mentioned, and not among their servants and representatives. They are all smug, megalomaniacs, self-important, egotistical, envious, and hateful for some reason or other that cannot be explained, and it remains indefinable whether they give them reason to do what they do. It does not always have to be pain and suffering or fear, but it can also be pure joy, a celebration, a photograph, or anything else that gives the impetus for it. The human being clings to something like this and cannot let go, not realizing that all of his experience and sensations came from himself alone and that no God had a hand in it. So he also does not realize that the whole thing was not a correct experience and not a true experience. But this then leads him to rise above his fellow human beings and to calm down with the delusion that he had his experience, and therefore knows that he stands above the other human being in knowledge and understanding. But how pathetic is such a human being who rises above another and believes that he is more, better, more important, and more valuable. Truly, the experience of human consciousness must be 1,000 and 1,000,000-fold if human beings really want to know and understand and gain higher knowledge. And if this is really the case with him, that in his consciousness the experiencing arises in 1,000 and 1,000,000 ways, then he becomes calm and modest and moves in a simple way through the world and cultivates true love, peace, freedom, and harmony in himself and all around. And such a carrier of truth, who carries these high values within himself and also gives them outwards, is a human being who holds on to his high values and protects them like a precious shrine. But if he is a carrier of consciousness, who considers himself a highly esteemed human being and, like in a prison, holds within himself a single experience with a single experience and tries not to get away from it, he is a fool because he thinks that everything imaginable has already happened and that he has enough for his life. But every fool who acts in this way will sooner or later find the truth, and through his understanding will come to awakening, whereby everyone will then realize that he has slept in relation to reality and its truth. Of course, it is correct for a human being to have an experience and to experience it, but nothing of value is done with it by far, if nothing more progressive is done with it. In principle, after an experience, and after experiencing it, one must not stand still, but move on. This must be constant, because only in this way can human beings remain active in their consciousness and cultivate valuable thoughts and feelings. Only then does he realize on his path that his experiences and their experiences are always only a transition in order to become awake and more awake, and in order to arrive at true recognition. But if a human being does not follow this direction, then the arrogance of consciousness will blossom in him, in which he thinks he is many times more than he really is, and thus he sets himself haughtily, selfishly, high-handedly, egotistically and megalomaniacally, etc. above his fellow men, who do not follow the same path as he does, and who have different views and opinions than he does. The human being must go further and further along his path through life, just as he must also go further and further in all his recognition of what is going on around him in the things of creation and what he finds in them. He may feel comfortable in the life on earth in which he stands, but he must not want to rise megalomaniacally above this feeling of well-being and to place himself on an equal footing with creation itself. Even if human beings feel well in their life on earth, they must also go further and further with all their strength, because they must not stand still and not be left behind, otherwise they are immediately in danger of no longer being able to make progress. But dangers also arise when moving on and ascending, and these must be met with all awareness, courage, and energy in order to be able to overcome them. But if there are human beings who are addicted to the faith in God, then they may, if they wish, be enlightened and instructed about reality and its truth, but under no circumstances may they be missionized. If they are reluctant to accept reality and its truth because of their religious sectarian beliefs, then they may be left alone. And if their nature, speech, and actions are looked at, then it is quickly recognized what is wrong with them. There are many, very many of them, even the majority of humanity, who belong to this circle, in which there is nothing but dead fruit, which rots and does not take in anything more in order to recover, because they think in their conceit that they already have everything. Another circle that is hostile to reality and truth are the phantoms, the dreamers, the frivolous and the gushers, who are easily inflamed by all that is new, without considering the old and weighing it up against the new, and, if necessary, combining it, thus really harming all that is good. Instead, however, they only hunt for the new and want to conquer the world or a new doctrine. But they do not understand the new, so they quickly sink back into themselves when it comes to putting the new, a doctrine, etc., into practice. They do not have the strength to persevere, to work on themselves and to learn. They are only suitable as strikers who run towards a goal when there is not much resistance. And they only rush forward when it is necessary to attack their fellow men, or to teach them, but without having the solid foundation of the necessary knowledge. They are not more than a quickly ignitable and loose firework, which quickly glows, throws its sparks, and very quickly goes out again. They hang on to thoughts, feelings, and all sorts of fantasies and desires which are not of much value. But there are also human beings who cannot refrain from taking up all that they are given. So when they are given the opportunity to find and absorb a drop of effective truth, they take it and spread it, but only in the sense that they can appear in any kind of glow and shine with it. They cannot refrain from making themselves great with the drop of truth they have obtained, and from weaving their own views and opinions into what they have been told, heard, or read, and in this way spinning the whole thing away and distorting it profoundly, just as it arises in their fantasy of self-interpretation. These kinds of human beings are not predominantly numerous, but they are all the more dangerous because they are capable of creating a senseless and crazy heresy from a grain of truth, and also of spreading it. And not infrequently, they unfortunately succeed in rising up to become false prophets and false sages as well as cult leaders. In doing so, they harm themselves in that they can no longer learn from reality and its truth, nor can they understand it. But the really bad thing about it all is that they also harm a great many fellow human beings, especially in their search for the effective, creative natural truth, and in their world of thoughts and feelings, and in their work, whereby the damage is almost irreparable. Truly, there is nothing else for human beings on earth when it comes to living life correctly and according to the creative natural laws and commandments, but to cultivate thoughts and feelings within the framework of reality and its truth, and to act accordingly. Fantasy, wishful dreams, and lies do not fit into this, because they are much more distant from reality and its truth and from the reality of creation than anything else. Creation is created out of reality-given uniform laws, and it is through these laws that it is also kept uniform in its development. With regard to its creation and existence, and with regard to its natural laws and commandments,
it is wrong to give free rein to pathological fantasies, desires, thoughts, and feelings, and to move in religious sectarian forms of belief which place a God as ruler over human beings, thereby denying them their own dominion over themselves.
Billy Simyase Silver Star Center. Friday, the 10th of December 2010, 2358. HRS Meditation from Clear Visibility Book. First sample. Meditative Basis to the Positive Consciousness Bearing. Meditation from Clearsight. High and Highest Meditation by Billy.
Meditative Basis to the Positive Consciousness Bearing. The true wealth of the meditative basis to the positive consciousness bearing rests in the true insight and in the true knowledge, learning and experience, that the omnipotence of one's own thoughts and feelings steers all functions and processes of life as a whole. Opposed to this is the blind belief in an all-directing God, and in amulets that fend off calamity, magical talismans, ritualistic acts and hallowed places of worship, holy rituals and relics, consecrated shrines, hallowed and holy water, holy breads and wines. Etc. knowledge is, in its essence, wisdom and positive neutral power, in comparison with which belief is a lack of understanding, and a phenomenon of intellectual feeling related, as well as psyche consciousness related, misdirected mechanisms, without knowledge regarding the creational spiritual and creational natural laws and directives. From this it clearly and definitively follows that recognition, knowledge, learning, experience and wisdom are alone, the true factors that exhibit real values and are evolutively effective, and build a positive basis to the positive consciousness bearing, while in contrast to this, the belief is a path to destruction and devolution and leads to insanity and confusion, as well as to a perturbed consciousness bearing. A meditative basis to the positive consciousness bearing consists in the value that the consciousness is steered by corresponding meditative thoughts and feelings, and is consciously formed. The meditative form with this consists in that certain thoughts are consciously cultivated again and again, through which corresponding feelings are triggered, which manifest themselves in the psyche in a beneficial and positive balanced way, and form this, whereby the consciousness is stimulated in the same manner, and a consciously positive consciousness bearing emerges. The meditative thoughts and feelings are cultivated again and again by thinking or muttering several times daily, 3 to 4 times, a specific sentence for about 5 minutes, and exercising deliberate attentiveness on what is spoken. The one and same sentence may have a use for a single day or for several days depending on need, more precisely for as long and often till the content of the sentence has become consciously self-evident. Thereby, the meditative basis to the positive consciousness bearing may become a long process, which may take several months or even a whole year. This naturally does not happen in such a way that, for this entire time, only a single sentence is applied to the meditative basis of the consciousness, bearing because, truly, The whole program of points for meditative use comprises 77, which by and by must find a use in order to achieve the total extent of the goal. Additionally, these 77 points are about learning to trust one's own potential and are also about getting rid of fears, living with oneself in peace, and enjoying life in abundance. Also integrated is one's own exaltedness, as well as the health and vitality, the finder of creative problem solutions, the correct cultivation of thoughts, and the successful life. The 77 steps of meditative cultivation of thoughts and feelings necessary for this are divided into the following sentences. 1. To live in today's world, I must be strong and develop tenacity with regard to my consciousness and my intellect. 2. The more tranquil and tenacious I become, the more I cope with difficulties. 3. The creational natural power is within myself, and I use this, putting it into effect in my thinking and acting. 4. I change myself positively within my consciousness bearing and utilize my creational natural power within myself for this. 5. I'm strong within myself and change my mental self-image positively. 6. Everything is achievable for me, and I master whatever I wish to accomplish. 7. I always raise my view, recognize all possibilities, and am a positive thinker. 8. I cope with all difficulties with courage and a victor's readiness. 9. I will always be as good and positive as my thoughts, feelings, and actions actually are. 10. Within me exists neither anxiety nor fear. 11. My thoughts and feelings strengthen the trust in myself. 12. I always abide with my knowledge that my thoughts and feelings are positive and generate what is positive. 13. I always find my own strength and can depend on it. 14. I myself always decide and act on my own responsibility and lead and define my life myself. 15. It is a joy to me to know and value myself. 16. Because I cultivate myself, I can depend on myself. 17. My nature is good, and I am a true human. 18. There is no discontent in me because everything moves actively and in contentment. 19. Myself is developed, and I live good with this together in harmony. 20. Because I respect creation, I respect and value also myself. 21. In every respect, I steer my life myself, and I also like my own results that I create. 22. In the consciousness, the psyche as well as in my thoughts and feelings, I am great and friendly and averse to every humility. 23. My inclination is to live according to the creational laws. 24. I view life in the world optimistically and make the best out of everything. 25. I always do my best and will thus succeed in all that is good. 26. I always accept myself and trust in myself. 27. The constant flux of creational laws and directives is within me as prosperity, which I realize. 28. Good living, wealth, and prosperity are within me in the love, in the happiness, in harmony, peace, and freedom. 29. Everything rich is in thoughts and feelings within me to learn what is rich, to help what is rich, and to create what is rich. 30. Richly positive balanced thoughts, feelings, and words form my consciousness-related bearing through which my inner prosperity and blessedness are expressed. 31. I daily nourish my thoughts and feelings from my consciousness with dynamic richness. 32. I feel joy's testimony within myself and fill it in with cheerfulness, diligence, and indefatigability. 33. My life is zeal, love, modesty, and warmed in goodwill. 34. I feel within myself a great liveliness, and a steady new awakening and being-bornness. 35. I daily remind myself of my good intellect and all my capabilities, which I utilize in positive ways. 36. I daily make the best possible out of my capabilities and out of my life. 37. Good positive thoughts and feelings are born daily within me, which I realize. 38. I daily open my eyes and all senses for the beauty and the enchantment of creational nature. 39. I daily am clear and lively in my thoughts and feelings as well as in my psyche and in my consciousness. 40. I daily am full of elan, full of jubilation and emotion, full of loftiness and undauntedness, and act accordingly. 41. My healing thoughts and feelings are the medicine of my psyche and my consciousness. 42. the creational peace has embedded in my consciousness. It soothes, calms, and heals me. 43. I live with my thoughts and feelings within the consciousness, insomuch that I fulfill the creational laws and directives according to my best abilities. 44. I live with the knowledge and the truth within my consciousness, insomuch that the creational spirit as well as its energy and power within me is present within all things. 45. The control over myself lets me be free from anxiety, lovelessness, discord, and from all bad things. 46. Within me is a great, massive, and creative willpower through which I can accomplish all my works. 47. Through my positive thoughts and feelings, I am free and content in all my work. 48. I daily join with the beneficial powers of creation, through which I develop positive powers within my consciousness for my development.
49. Within me reigns the infinite of my life, which continues beyond death in endless further lives.
50. Even problems have their values within me because through these, I change the problems around into solutions and success. 51. My reason and my understanding are aligned in such a way that I find creative solutions for everything. 52. In every situation, I am objective, hopeful, and optimistic. 53. I always find all possibilities and solutions, whereby problems are solved at once. 54. In each problem, I recognize immediately its weak points and cope with it with bravery. 55. I am always hopeful, and thus cope with even the most difficult things. 56. The more problems I cope with, the more knowing, wiser, and livelier I become. 57. My problems and their solution finding strengthen my consciousness and let me humbly recognize the wisdom of creation. 58. The thoughts and feelings that emerge out of problems for the solution show to me the importance of creativity and progress. 59. With reason and understanding, I cope with every problem on my own. 60. I release myself from every tension by controlling my thoughts and feelings and letting them become creative factors and values. 61. I daily enjoy the moments of silence and listen intensively to the intuitions that spur me steadily to new thoughts, feelings, and actions. 62. In all things that I do, I always take the creational laws and directives as my partners. 63. In all things that I do, I usefully apply my analytical thoughts and thereby always find the right path and the right behavior. 64. If thoughts and feelings are created, then I shape them in knowledge and wisdom from which I steadily profit. 65. My acquired knowledge gives directions to me on how I must do and not do something. 66. I always keep my spiritual and consciousness-related conduits free, whereby the creational laws and directives can work within me and through me. 67. Within me everything is honest, successful, and happy, whereby I also act with a sense for social responsibility. 68. I am aware of what being a true human means, and I act within the meaning of being a true human. 69. I lead my successful life within the framework of the creational laws and directives. 70. Hard work matters to me and promotes my created capabilities, as also my perseverance, the joy in working, and the will of goal achievement. 71. For all things I consciously use my ideas, thoughts, and feelings, gain cognitions, knowledge, and wisdom from that and progress in life. 72. In all things that I do, I comprise persistence and zeal and always value what I do. 73. I always remain relaxed and thereby gain power over myself. 74. I always see to it that I have quiet moments because they bring me repose, peace, and harmony. 75. I visualize within myself the creational laws and directives and feel protectingly embedded in them. 76. In all things, I rise within myself onto a podium and look down at myself from the higher standpoint, whereby I recognize my weaknesses, which I try to correct. 77. I always walk on all paths that call the creational laws to me. Therefore, my prosperity and adversity are always productive. The aforementioned 77 sentence factors represent a small selection of those meditative values through which a basis to the positive consciousness bearing can be worked out. The form of meditation for this is extremely simple and associated without strain because only about 5 quiet minutes are necessary a few times daily to perform it, during which one of the mentioned meditation sentences is thought silently or muttered to oneself. At the same time, attention is directed towards the corresponding word order in order to inculcate them and have them become effective. If the sentences are meditatively practiced long enough, then an effect cannot fail to appear, which shows that the consciousness bearing slowly but surely improves and becomes ever more positive balanced. And exactly this is indeed the purpose of practice. Besides the 77 aforementioned sentences, there are still countless others in which it naturally is left up to each human to form his own word orders and sentences according to his own judgment, and to use these. With this, it is important only that the described meditation practice is steadfastly adhered to, because only through this can a true success occur, in order to attain a basis to the positive consciousness bearing.
Second sample: tension reaction, relaxation reaction, and relaxation meditation.
Tension reaction, relaxation reaction, and relaxation meditation pp. 85-86, meditation from clear visibility. Further introductory words, solely caused by his or her unconscious or conscious thoughts. The human being is capable of reacting and developing feelings precisely as if the pertinent situation, which is consciously or unconsciously thought up, exists. If that happens, then the entire nervous system mobilizes its resources, whereby the body releases adrenaline and other hormones and drives the blood pressure up, during which a tension of the entire body is triggered, which can call forth anxiety as well as flight reflexes. But with the practice of meditation, exactly such factors, as well as the aforementioned, must not arise, because with meditation, it is most imperatively necessary that they are entirely turned off, and an absolutely neutral attitude comes to the fore throughout. Simple anxiety on its own, but also excessive anxiety in particular, is a tension reaction which has been driven high, which brings about extraordinarily detrimental effects and brings the nervous system into confusion, which makes a profound meditation totally impossible. Therefore, if anxiety or fear exists, then no attempt should be undertaken to meditate deeply, because this cannot succeed in such a state. Therefore, it is necessary that by means of a rational and clear relaxation meditation, the origins of the tension reactions of anxiety or fear are fathomed and resolved by the concentrative total clearing up and overcoming of them, whereby a relaxation reaction then arises. The relaxation and calming of the nervous system is based on a clarification of the causes of anxiety, as well as on a clarification of the thoughts and feelings, which brings with it the entering of calm and equanimity, which the state of relaxation meditation calls forth. With this kind of meditation, which serves solely the relaxation, the thoughts and feelings play a very important role, because through them, the necessary effect is attained. From that, it becomes recognizable how very important the thoughts and feelings are, and that these are able to call forth both the negative as well as the positive. To that end, it is necessary that both the flow of the thoughts as well as the feelings which arise from them, which are equally inevitably present, are observed, understood, and controlled. And in regard to the relaxation reaction, in regard to the controlling of the thoughts and feelings, and thereby also the anxiety and the flight reflexes and so forth, everything can be determined by the thoughts and feelings. The relaxation meditation is to be observed and considered and understood in this sense, because the controlling of the thoughts and feelings for the overcoming of anxiety and flight feelings and so forth, and for the obtaining of the relaxation reaction, is the seal of the relaxation meditation.
Third sample: uses of meditation.
Uses of meditation pp. 86-87, meditation from clear visibility. Further introductory words. Meditation shows a large palette of very useful effects, because it not only helps in coping with the everyday life, and in coping with stress, problems, grief and worries and so forth. Rather, it also calms, and it creates inner peace, equalizedness, joy, inner freedom and harmony. Also, through meditation, the sleep requirements can be controlled and limited, and along with that, as a result of a targeted meditation, the possibility exists that one becomes free of habits, vices, and addictions. Even the pulse and the blood pressure and even the body temperature can be influenced to a certain degree, just as can external influences of heat and cold on the body. Needless to say, a purposeful meditation is also able to control the pain level and even neutralize the substances supplied to the body. As a result of a suitable meditation, even certain amounts of toxins and alcohol as well as nicotine and drugs can be neutralized, or at least have a more or less limited effect. A further use of meditation also lies in obtaining more appreciation for life, in accepting changes with more equanimity, in coping better with losses, living life more consciously, feeling more for others and having deeper feeling for others, being more affirming of life and more loving, creating true love, facing death with understanding and without anxiety and hate, rather in deep respect, and mastering the grief with dignity and in the understanding of the reality. Along with the aforementioned usefulness and benefits which arise in their special forms through meditation, there are still many more, which are actually unnecessary to cite because they run through the entire existence of the human being and influence his or her entire life. Thus the entire world of the thoughts is included in that, just as the tremendously manifold universe of the feelings also is, as well as the spheres of the emotions, the work, how one deals with one's fellow human beings and with the fauna and flora. The benefit of the meditation in all its forms and variations is as manifold as the life of the human being is manifold in all his or her own forms and variations.
Fourth sample, meditation for the attainment of inner calm.
Meditation for the attainment of inner calm, pp. 208, 210. Meditation from clear visibility, high and highest meditation, states of the tension, the chaos, the unrest and the confusion and so forth, are based on vexation, misery, worries, and problems, as well as on suffering, pain, affliction, stress and sorrow and so forth. Also creating the preconditions for that are anxieties about oneself, as well as about the family, friends, acquaintances, the work, the political world events, wars, the environment, the climate and social conditions, and so forth. These states can be countered by means of good meditative practices directed at the attainment of inner calm. Through such a meditation, the consciousness of self can be raised again, just as the activity can be produced again, and the worlds of the thoughts and feelings can be purposefully directed at neutral positive aspects. The basic prerequisite for that consists of bringing about a meditative inner quietness, as well as a physical and psychical calm, which leads to the positive equalization of the consciousness. Thereby there is a resolution of the material, thought-feeling-based and emotional confusion, that is to say, the muddle, the disorder and disarray which appear to oppress the mental block through all their negative aspects. As a rule, a meditation for the attainment of inner calm should last for approximately 3 to 5 minutes, whereby the time, however, should not be greatly exceeded, because otherwise the whole thing begins to become laborious. The practice can be carried out several times daily as required, or also at night. And for this form of meditation, there is a string of advice about how to conduct oneself, which can be advantageous to follow, but which can be individually formed. 1. It is advantageous to lie on something comfortable, such as a bed or a couch, and so forth. One can lie down either in a room or outdoors, whereby, however, the temperature should be pleasant, which under certain circumstances can be regulated by a blanket laid over the body. It is thereby also important to feel at ease. Naturally, the meditation practice can also be carried out while sitting or standing as desired. 2. With the practicing of meditation, one should take care that the clothing is loose and not restrictive and that the eyes are closed. 3. At the beginning of the practice, it is recommendable to first breathe in and out calmly and deeply about 3 times consecutively, but without concentrating on the rhythm of the breath or on the inhaling or exhaling. 4. An observation of the next inhalations now follows until only they are perceived, and a freeing from the thoughts, that is to say, an absence of thought thereby arises. 5. Once this state has been reached, there arises a general relaxation, which is used for the creation of a swinging wave of the inner peace, which occurs as a result of the heedfulness quite simply being guided onto a generally peaceful situation. The swinging wave thereby spreads over the entire mental block as well as over the body. 6. Now one must persist in this state of the swinging waves of peace for 1 to 2 minutes, without thereby allowing any thoughts free rein, without wanting anything and without doing anything and without paying attention to anything. 7. The mediation practice ends after 3 to 5 minutes by inhaling deeply 3 times, without observing the following exhalations. After that, the eyes are opened. If it occurs that one goes to sleep during this meditation and only awakens again after a long time, then that is of absolute insignificance in regard to the practice itself. On the contrary, with this meditation practice, sleep, a sleepy calm, or similar states of the consciousness are a good sign, because it shows that the meditation has its effect and brings about a relaxation. In turn, relaxation is a good sign that the body and the entire mental block, the thoughts and feelings, the psyche and the consciousness, are finally ready to allow themselves to drop away and free themselves of all the negative effects of the tensions, the chaos, the confusions, and the unrest, and so forth.